Good morning and welcome back to DSP Leaders World Forum. It's day 3, Wednesday the 13th of May, and coming up now is our session on digital services markets and business models. But before we start, a quick reminder that if you want to ask questions later or join the Extra Shot with Ray LeMaitre programs, then get in touch with us as soon as possible. Details are there on Telecom TV, along with our latest poll question. And so moving on to our panel, digital services markets and business models. What are the most viable new markets and business models? Many service providers have already entered the broadcast and streaming market, for example, with varying degrees of success. Others have launched financial products, and many more are looking at ways to help with the digitalization of enterprises and business. So what are the most attractive digital services markets that would appeal to telcos? And how can technology, such as 5G, Edge and AI, become new business enablers? Well, time to meet our guests, and I'm delighted to introduce Tanya Richter, who is Technology Director, Consumer Products and Services at Vodafone Group, John Vickery, Enterprise CTIO at BT, and Andrew Coward, CEO of Lumina Networks. Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us on Telecom TV.
Hello.
Morning, Guy.
Hello.
Now, we've been charting the evolution of CSPs to digital services providers for some time now. Some of these new services are of the, dare I say, OTT, the sort of over-the-top type of services. Others are more tied to network and connectivity, playing to the telco strengths. If we look at the latter first, what's the current demand, do you think, for enhanced connectivity services, ones that go beyond basic connectivity and provide more value add? Tanya, could I start with you?
Yes, sure. Thank you. Very interesting question. So we are, I would say, in Vodafone already on our way to become a digital service provider, because we already built quite a few of our product platforms in-house. So when we talk about enhanced connectivity services, we right now see a steeply increased demand for additional unlimited service provisionings. We also see the demand for all the streaming services, additional streaming services provided by mainly partners such as Netflix, Spotify, Deezer. And our value add can then be and is to make that streaming services very easily accessible for our customers simply by one click. So we have a platform that is called Charge to Bill. And we see an increase of traffic right now by nearly 100%. So it's more than 1.5 million clicks and transaction that we have per day. So that's one area. The other area that we obviously see just right now in our COVID-19 times is everything around digital channels. So our be it our Toby chatbot, where we have a 200% increase of traffic right now, supporting our customers, or also the My Vodafone application, helping our customers to do more things online and doing more things digitally. And then I would say another adjacent area, if I may add to that, is security. So everything around secure connectivity, a product that we have launched for mobile, but also now for fixed, also including parental control. So I think security and communication goes very nicely hand in hand.
And John, what about BT? What are you seeing from enterprise customers for the demand for services that go beyond the basic connectivity that we've all been used to?
Yeah, so that's, it's an interesting topic. So I see the connectivity market really being linked intrinsically to absolutely every type of digital service you could imagine at the moment. So I think that the two are intrinsically linked. There's huge demand in different verticals for different digital services. I think we're seeing a big shift towards mobilizing frontline workers and task workers, where historically enterprises had been about mobilizing and digitalizing their knowledge-based, desk-based workers. We're seeing a lot of the task-based workforce, which are like the factory workers, the customer service, the field engineers, really starting to adopt new technologies, augmented realities and mixed realities. And so there's a big growth in the demand for those types of applications. So we're trying to kind of react to that and co-create with some of our key enterprise customers in different verticals to see if we can deliver some real outcomes. And I think ultimately the demand is absolutely outcome driven. These guys, they want a more productive workforce, they want cost efficiencies, and so they're looking for applications to absolutely deliver that value for their bottom line.
And Andrew, you support CSPs in enabling them to offer these services and enter these markets. What are they saying to you, and what are you seeing from them in terms of their service mix and how that affects the network requirements?
Yeah, well, I think the service mix is really just interesting. If you think about the networks that we've built, to date to 4G, now moving to 5G, the presumption was everybody and everything kind of got the same service, i.e. it's a smartphone, has access to internet high speed, streaming, and so on. As we move forward, we can see almost a bifurcation of how services are delivered to these types of devices, because it's not just about the handset with these things. For example, and just thinking about the bifurcation of the services, half of it will be, half the type of services are extremely high performant, streaming video and so on. So for example, doing a video broadcast from a remote location in 4K, low latency, high speed, very high reliability requirements. And the exact opposite of that, if you think about it from a performance perspective, would be, say, a water meter that's now connected to the network and is just providing information once every couple of weeks. So very, very different extremes, if you like, of network performance and requirements. And so that one network fits all doesn't work anymore in that model. And so the exciting thing that we're seeing with our customers as they think through 5G, and particularly 5G core and how that then plays out in this new service, is how they can basically deliver different types of service characteristics depending on what that customer, that end user, or that service type requires.
As we venture more into these new markets and expand our reach into these markets, are the service providers sufficiently competitive? Now, I'm talking to two service providers here today, so I'm sure you're going to say yes, you are. But what are the challenges you face in remaining competitive, John?
So obviously we've got competition from the hyperscalers in terms of how much value we can get from our network assets. But when you think about where a telco fits into the ecosystem, connectivity is just becoming more and more important. Distance working, remote working, these are the hot applications that people are looking for. So there is inherent value in our infrastructure, in our real estate, alongside the ability to differentiate service at the network layer. When you combine that with the new applications and the kind of different service levels that verticals will need, I think that's where you can extract the value, and that's what makes us competitive. Alongside the fact that we've got strong retail brands that are underpinned by reputation for reliability and trust and security, and I think that's really important to businesses and consumers. So absolutely, there's a place for the telco, and it's a broad and evolving and growing market. Digital services hasn't even got going yet for some enterprises, and certainly some segments of the verticals that we're looking at, like healthcare and manufacturing. So it's really an open market at the moment, and absolutely with our assets and our experience, we've certainly got a role in this new market.
And Tanya, the same question to you. How do you stay competitive? And as John was just saying, there are certain markets there that are on the early steps towards embracing a digital mentality. So how do you become their first choice, their go-to partner?
Yeah, I think John laid it out very well, really, because for me to compete completely with our over-the-top players, and I'm now looking at it more from a consumer angle, is most likely really difficult for us. I mean, we see there, so that even when it comes to communication services like WhatsApp, they are clearly a very strong competitor. I would have said our sweet spot is exactly as John said, where you combine our core business, which is connectivity, with service layers that we put on top. And for me, a very good example is IoT. You know that we have a huge enterprise IoT business called out in the Gartner Magic Quadrant with 90 million SIMs. That is, first of all, connectivity, but then you actually add on, exactly as John said, you add on applications, you add on marketplaces, you add on partners. So you're building a complete ecosystem, and out of that we can derive the adequate value in terms of vertical business and also horizontal platforms. And we then also took it one step further to give you another example out of the consumer space, saying, okay, we need to leverage that kind of asset that we have, connectivity and IoT, also for our consumer area. So we started to build also a consumer IoT platform on our own. It's in-house, self-built, shaping the market, leveraging the experience and also the assets that we have with our networks, with our enterprise IoT platform, but then building on top more and more capabilities and also more and more services for our customers. So combining network plus our new applications.
John, do you echo the network plus applications approach there?
Absolutely, and I think that the point about partnering and about our history of building strong partnerships, that's going to be absolutely key. We can develop a platform where we can start to integrate new APIs. We can be agnostic to partners. We can partner with the hyperscalers. We can partner with new developers and really focus on those customer outcomes without thinking we've got to do everything ourselves, because I think that would be naive. Certainly in enterprise, we've got strong understanding of certain verticals, and some we're speaking different languages. I mean, you speak to businesses who set up automated factory systems, and some of the terminology we use in telco would mean something completely different in that environment. So you can partner with third-party system integrators and work with the developers who are just operating on a day-to-day basis within that vertical. And the combined power of our network, our connectivity, the ability to orchestrate effectively managed services and combining that into propositions means that there's an opportunity to create a digital services platform that's just rich with with value for our customers. So I think that's one of the benefits that we've got is bringing everything together and almost orchestrating that ecosystem for these customers.
So, sorry, if I may add to that, I think partnerships and co-creation, John, exactly as you said, is becoming more and more important. So the famous platform play, where we then have different parties bringing everything together. From my personal opinion, we also as telcos, we have to start building more of those services, platforms by ourselves, because that gives us the possibility to differentiate, to iterate fast, and to also build following best customer experience. So far telcos were mainly integrating. I think we really have to move away from that, building our own platforms and start to differentiate also on higher levels on the stack. I don't know how you see it.
Andrew, we've heard from Vodafone and BT about the importance of creating these platforms upon which we can build businesses and services and build them rapidly and respond to changing market demands and being quick. That places a lot of emphasis on the network itself. To be able to do that, we need to have these quite dynamic and agile networks in place in the first place.
Well, yeah, so I think there's a fairly relatively easy measure of how competitive these telcos really are, and that's kind of the return on deployed capital. And if you think about it, the more platforms, the more services they can run off that existing infrastructure, i.e. the amount of innovation and sales they can basically pull against that infrastructure is one key part that feeds into that. But the second is the efficiency by which they run their networks. And so having a level of automation that deploys services as needed, doesn't require humans to intervene, to enable a new customer to come on board, for example. All of these things that drive automation are absolutely the key to reducing the cost base on which it takes to run the network. And when you do that, you return more money to be invested back into the network, because ultimately, for all these great new services and platforms we're talking about, customers will select them based on the performance of the network and essentially who has that best network. And that's really the fight that's going on between the telcos is kind of creating the best network ever, if you like. And so, as I say, the key to that is driving automation. So this digitization of the network infrastructure and all the tasks that go into not just provisioning, but also, as we call, kind of closed loop automation. So when something breaks, how it gets fixed in an automatic way, or how bandwidth gets provisioned dynamically for, say, a network slice that's delivering high value or high volume video to an endpoint, for example. All those things get to play out. Now, the challenge that we're going through is that, to a large extent, the networks today are not dynamic. They're manually created, manually provisioned. And so we're still quite a ways away from having that automation. And so, from the customers we work with, the race is on, if you like, particularly in the shift to 5G, to make sure that as much of the network is automated as possible, as quickly as possible, and not just the new stuff, but the old stuff too. And by doing that, they create this highly competitive framework off which all these platforms will run.
So, John, we tend to talk in the industry, and we'll cover automation, but we tend to talk in isolation at times. Is it important that when we talk about subjects like automation of the network, that we see what the end goal is? And in this case, it's all about the services and all about our ability to deliver those useful and profitable services.
Absolutely. I think when you're looking at automation, you need to think about how you get to a stage where you're really confident on what you want to deliver and what you want to achieve. When you're exploring new opportunities and you're working with customers, it's about co-creation, it's about agility. So sometimes you're not going to want to build that level of automation. You're just going to want to get something together, a minimum trial, minimum viable product that you can get out there and demonstrate the value of that application to that customer. And once you start to see the green shoots of success, you can think, okay, well, how do I translate this to something that we can take to market? And really, the automation comes in when you want to start scaling these applications and industrializing the solutions. So I think, it's key that we keep a level of agility and the ability to execute quickly, to innovate, and then as soon as we've got that business case and that understanding, then we can get out and build all the automation to scale that up.
And Tanya, following up from that, Vodafone's got huge reach. It's huge geographical area across the group. Is it a case that you need to trial out, test, deploy limited services, limited areas with a view to being able to then scale out?
Yeah, absolutely. This is exactly what we do and what we also want to do. And whatever service we create or product we create it with scalability in mind. So to John's point, I do agree. You really have to start small with a minimum viable product. From an architectural perspective, though, we always try to include scalability and also automation from the very beginning, so that you don't have to re-architect again and again on the product side. Coming back to the automation topic, for me, it's two kinds of and two levels of automation. One is on the network side, our aspiration and ambition would be really zero-touch network from an operational perspective, so that you really have automated your operational processes, also deployment of new network functionality. Still, for me, network right now and also classical IT has a bit of a different rhythm, a bit of a slower rhythm when it comes to deployment of new features and functionality than products and services have. This is why, for me, it's also so important to have that kind of abstraction, so that a network exposes a lot of functionality to upper layers, to our products and platform layers, so that they can easily be consumed and that we can then iterate relatively fast in experimenting and building new products on top. And then for that, again, you have automation of basically coding, designing APIs, all the famous CI/CD pipelines that basically brings your code, automates it, and then puts it into pre-prod and then also in your production. But it's different kinds of automation and also different rhythms that I see in these different areas.
And John, are we as an industry, do we still rely on technology to tell us this is the technology, we've introduced new technology, this is what it can do, therefore we'll create services off the back of it, we'll build it, they will come approach? Or are we now looking more at the actual customers, listening to them, and then feeding that back into then, this is what we need to deliver those services?
So, I mean, the latter is obviously where we want to be. We want to be customer led, we want to be customer outcome driven. If we're not targeting technologies and solutions that deliver a tangible customer benefit, then it's not going to be successful. So absolutely, where we have all the information, that's what we should be focusing on. However, a lot of the technology that's available, we don't know even 10% of what it will ultimately be used for. We've got the ability to think with technology far in advance, as we've got to know what it will be used for. And so sometimes you have to move with the technology and take a bit of a punt. Now, there's bigger risk in that. It might be deploying network edge capability across the whole network, as an example. So you've got the ability to deliver lower latency applications ubiquitously. So connected vehicles, connected ambulances, connected armed response vehicles, connected field workers, being able to deliver low latency applications for them. You might have to make a bit of an investment, co-create. You might know 1 or 2, 3, 4 use cases, and then you've built yourself a platform that hopefully will continue to be utilized moving forward. I think if you look at more campus-based solutions, there's a lot less risk when you're thinking about factories and mines and ports and the operational areas of airports, because you could be quite reactive and build solutions specifically for those verticals. Whereas if you're making investments in big swathes of network, to a degree, you have to kind of build it with a level of confidence and accept that you don't know exactly what it will be used for, but that there's value, that the first few use cases, and so there's I see that those are the two sides of the coin, really. I don't think it's as black and white as it has to be one or the other. I don't think it's either or. It's sometimes we know everything, sometimes we don't, and that's why co-creation is so important, working with customers together to build that understanding and in a partnership.
Tanya, I think did you want to add to that and the partnership and the co-creation side?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So we were always looking for those kind of killer applications. Or with 3G, we had that discussion with 4G, and now also with 5G. And I'm absolutely with John. Most likely, we have to build out capabilities like mobile edge computing, and also 5G with low latency, high throughput, and then partner with our customers, or also as we do in many different countries, partner with smaller startups. And then see what they come up with. There are tons of interesting ideas out there around gaming, esports. I would have said the telecoms industry hasn't figured it out yet, really. And we have to partner, and we have to team with smaller companies, with other kinds of companies, in order to figure out what would it be. And we have to experiment, and I think we also have to get over that notion of we need to allow ourselves also to fail. There might be products that really fail miserably because nobody really wants it, and then you might have something where customers suddenly say, that's exactly what I want.
Andrew, you're working right on the cutting edge here. How does your work, how does the innovation you produce is impacted by the ultimate demands of the CSPs, rather than pushing technology to its extremes for the sake of pushing it?
Well, right. I know, to the point of all these new services and all these different types of things, some of which will succeed, some of which will fail. The importance is speed and the ability to innovate quickly on a platform. And for us, the key to making that happen is having a common platform based off open source, which means that for somebody developing a new service, they don't have to worry about who the underlying vendor is, because that's abstracted through open source framework through SDN. They don't have to worry about how a bill will get printed, because that's all fitted in with the ecosystem that sits around this. And so they're focused on what are the characteristics of the service, what are the latency requirements, the bandwidth requirements, those types of things. And they know and can say with confidence that the network will provision and deliver against that when they call the APIs, when they go request to build that. And so a lot of the groundwork, if you like, across our customer base is being built on how do we deliver open source as the SDN platform that basically drives this innovation. How do we build the APIs that extend to our partners so that they can drive the service characteristics they need? And how do we make sure that if the network doesn't work out or there's a problem, how does that information get reported in a common way that can be quickly resolved? So all those things speak to driving this baseline platform, operating system, if you like, for the telco, on which all this innovation can then lie. And the point of it being open source versus anything else, is that in an open source world, again, you're not reliant on one particular vendor, and you're creating an open ecosystem in which everybody gets to play, from the smallest participant in a particular country to the largest vendors. And so really, in the build up to this, and over the last, I'd say, 5 years, it's been getting all the vendors, the proprietary vendors, to ensure that when they show up in a carrier, they are showing up with things that work with open source solutions, that the standards of their products interoperate, and they're told that you will not be able to force fit your management tool in this. You will be using this method of doing things because it's the only way we can scale and innovate on our platform appropriately.
Now, we obviously hear a lot about 5G at this moment. There's a lot of faith being put on 5G to open up new business services as a driver and an enabler for this. I wonder if I could ask John and Tanya, maybe John, I'll start with yourself. How do you foresee 5G, the role that 5G will play in opening up new digital services markets?
So 5G is about mobility. It's also about bringing together technologies into a single ecosystem. It's a phased release. We're out there at the moment showing what 5G can do for enterprise, and then as we start to move through to release 16 and release 17, we'll start to see the introduction of standalone core, network slicing, lower latency, the integration with network edge and services. And I think with every phase of technology, we'll start to see new opportunities to deliver business benefit for our customers. Network slicing is such an interesting area when you think about how you can slice and dice the network into core, transport, RAN, slicing. So the way we look at private networks, for example, today is we can deliver a core network on site. Most of the deployments globally are core on site, radios, dedicated spectrum, devices that can only connect to that network, so you've got reliability. But if you could deliver that level of service through the public network and be able to allow a customer to just tailor their service level exactly how they want it, there's got to be huge value. And I think that's when we're really going to see 5G come alive for customers, is that the extent of tailoring that can be achieved through network slicing to meet specific requirements. I think there's huge value in that, and then linking that with hopefully what will have become a more mature digital services market for the telco. That's when we can really start, being more in the driving seat around those verticals and ecosystems.
Tanya, you spoke earlier about the risks of chasing killer applications as we go through the generations of mobile. We've been there, not always successfully. But with 5G, what kind of new services do you think, without talking about killer applications here, but what kind of impact would 5G have?
Yeah, I see it very similar to John, actually. I would have said main early impact, most likely on business side. So clearly network slicing, mobile private networks. I also see that with a big throughput and the low latency, we can mobilize a lot of production processes that were basically bound to one location within a big factory. So the production processes in other industries might change because we are not bound to cable or Wi-Fi anymore, but we basically have 5G then for factories, and that gives another greater freedom, also from a security perspective, because you can have basically your own network that is more or less disconnected from everybody else. When we then spill over to consumer, surely for both areas I see IoT. We always say 5G will see billions of IoT devices of all kinds, be it more on the business side, be it also on the consumer side. I would have said in some years from now, nearly everything that we have will be connected. And right now we see a lot of white goods, for example, or a lot of home devices still connected to Wi-Fi. That might change. It might actually connect then to 5G because it is so much easier. It's just a plug and play, and you have also another reliability factor coming with it. But then for me, another really important area for 5G is it, with low latency and high throughput, it opens the door to have really high compute algorithms, AI algorithms, not necessarily residing on your devices anymore. So when you think about virtual reality or augmented reality, so you can potentially then suddenly have really small glasses, because you can have via 5G a lot of that compute power sitting somewhere else, either at the very edge or at least on your device. That would give us another level of freedom in that area. Whether you then use it for gaming or you use it to make basically blind people see again, because in real time you can give them all kinds of information about the surroundings. That is something we will see.
And Andrew, what's your view on how 5G and its associated technologies will open up these new digital services markets?
Yeah, well, I think it's really interesting if you look at IoT market. And I agree, IoT is the thing that's going to drive adoption of vast millions, billions of devices. But today, IoT devices, if they're connected to the network, to the mobile network, they're connected to 2G. It's actually one of the reasons that the 2G networks are not being turned off because the price point of connecting to a 2G network, the chipsets and so on, are just really low, and you've got this massive install base. So you've kind of got this pent-up demand, if you like, for IoT type devices with 5G chipsets that will, as I say, low volume of data, intermittent reception of information, and so on, to get that chipset down in price and then deployed in every type of home device, every type of industry device that goes out there, right? I don't want to be setting up Wi-Fi on my refrigerator or washing machine. That doesn't make any sense, but it makes a lot of sense for the manufacturer at the right price point to ship with a 5G chip in that washing machine that automatically and continuously is reporting back on the performance of that device and interacting with the applications and so on and other things that are in that home. So that's the direction that we're going. And so we need that chipset at the right price, and then we need the automation framework and the network slicing to take advantage of that. And those things come together, and we get to the next billions of devices that then join that network infrastructure. So in many ways, the success of 5G isn't necessarily tied to the handset in the way that everybody thinks that 4G was, for example. It's about the adoption of this next wave of devices at this vast scale.
A final question. I'd just like to ask, have we any thoughts yet about where the next big digital services market might be? Will there be one? Will there be a new market that will open up for these platforms that we are creating now? Or is it going to be a case of just we're going to be building on what we already have? John?
So I think I can't put my finger on whether there'll be one brand new digital services market that we've not considered yet. I think we're looking at a number of target verticals and thinking how are they going to adopt new digital services and where is it going? And we're looking at trends and we're speaking and we're co-creating. I think we're seeing a lot of green shoots in the types of verticals that have huge amount of frontline workers and task workers, as I said at the start of this conversation. That when you look at healthcare, you look at the service industries, you look at retail, you look at field services, there's a real opportunity to start adopting remote working, and especially with the recent situation globally, distance working is going to become a lot more prevalent. So relying on connectivity and these new applications, they're going to need new services. So I mean, for instance, in a connected healthcare environment, we're talking about remote diagnostics. You start off with ultrasounds, then you move on to stethoscopes and ECGs and endoscopes and mammographies, and really the opportunities are endless. So these digital services markets for enterprise are very embryonic, and there's huge scope to grow. I don't think there's going to be one area where it's like, wow, we missed that. I think it's going to be a very broad evolution for enterprise, but it's certainly an exciting place to be, particularly with the emergence of 5G and edge compute and network slicing. It's exciting technologies, and it's going to really deliver some fantastic benefits for our customers and industries in the UK and globally.
Thanks, Sean, of course, globally, don't forget globally. Tanya, what about the consumer market?
Yeah, I see it. I see it very much the same. So, I mean, now in these recent times, I also see everything around learning platforms. So at least here in Germany, many public schools actually struggle to get the content somehow to every pupil. So that for sure. So content distribution in any way is for sure an area where 5G and all the new technology can help. And for the foreseeable future, at least, we might need more of that. For me, everything around esports and gaming, around virtual reality, or at least the augmented reality, is another area. But again, as I said, I think the sky is the limit, and we really need the co-creation aspect in it to really get it going, because there are small companies out there that they might focus on a niche, but actually at some point in time we will realize that this is the next big thing. But really difficult to say. When you look at who would have thought that M-Pesa, which is a financial service, suddenly becomes that big on the African continent, run by a telco operator, and I think it changed the lives. Nobody would have thought that in the very beginning. So let's see. It's so difficult to predict what it will be, but I'm pretty sure we will see it coming.
Well, Tanja, John, and Andrew, thank you all very much indeed for joining us on Telecom TV.
Thanks, Guy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And if you have any questions for our guests or any additional comments or views you wish to add, then please get in touch with us. And if you want to be part of the ongoing conversation, then you need to join us on our extra short discussion program with Telecom TV's editorial director, Ray Lemaitre. Get in touch with us now through social media or email. Otherwise, please take a look at the sessions that we've already held. They are all available for on-demand viewing now here on Telecom TV. And we'll be adding future videos to the archive throughout the week. Coming up next on DSP Leaders World Forum 2020 is our session on how to implement cloud-native network transformation. And you'll be able to watch that later today from 12 noon UK time. But for now, a final thank you to our panelists and to you for watching. Goodbye.